after his children had died, and a fire had taken the house, a messenger comes and he says, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. God gives and God takes away. And you'll remember that Job has 3 other little companions that are kind of supposed to be his comfort. And later on in Job, it actually says that they give darkened counsel, that their counsel was no good. And the Lord was even sharing with me this week that the book of Job, if you look at all the counsel that Job was saying to himself, and the counsel of the 3 wise guys that were there, you will find this exact counsel in the churches today. In the church today. It's the same counsel. It sounds spiritual. It sounds really good. But in the end, God says, that's not me. That's not what I've been saying at all. And then at the very end of Job, and I love this, in Job chapter 42, we'll just start at verse 1. It says, Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? And then he says, therefore, because I did not have knowledge, I have declared that which I did not understand. He's saying, God, I didn't understand this about you. I said this, absolutely. And I think we need to really realize that there's stuff in the Bible that is historically accurate, all right? Job actually said these words, but they're not biblical, all right? They're not scriptural. They're not God. And so he says, I declared that which I did not understand. Things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Hear now, and I will speak. I will ask you, and instruct me. I have heard by the hearing of your ear. By now my eye sees you. And then verse 6, therefore I retract, and I repent in dust and ashes. And repent is to change his mind. So he says, I take back what I said, and I'm changing my mind. What else did he change his mind about? There's a song that is really bad, but people sing it in the church. It's based on Job in chapter 13, and he says, he says here, though you slay me, I will trust in you. And I'm thinking, what kind of papa is that? Papa's going to slay me. Though you kill me, I'm going to trust in you. So sure, the first kid might trust, but what about the rest of the kids? Right? Are they going to trust Papa? So these are just the things that just are not correct. And so some of you are my friends on Facebook, and you saw the explosion that happened on Facebook, and you see all these things, and I think it's really good for discussion. I think it's okay. That's why I leave it on Facebook. Discussion's okay, all right? And to have even disagreements is okay. But even to put out why we believe this, or why you don't believe this, that's okay. I can guarantee you that if we spend any amount of time together, there'll be something that comes up that I just don't see it the same way you do, and you just don't see it the same way I do. And so that's okay. And so I was thinking about what I'm about to share with you. God is a giver. And then I posted that, and all this took place, and I'm okay with that. My shoulders are pretty broad, so spiritually, not maybe physically, but spiritually, and it's okay. And I was thinking, God is a giver and not a taker. Now let me go back, because because I do believe God takes all of our sin. God takes all of our sickness. God takes all of our poverty. God takes all of our pain. Okay? But it was actually Josh that said something that really made me think. Even in God taking that, He actually gave first. He gave His Son to almost take or receive our sin. Jesus died on the cross to take our sickness. Right? And so even God gave. And anything that God gives that is good, He will not take from you. Now there are a ton of Christians out there that don't believe that God will take good things from you. But I want you to know tonight that what God gives you that is good, He will not take from you. There is an adversary. There is a devil whose sole job is to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's what he wants to do. And we blame God, or God gets credit for what the devil did. And I just think that's absolutely terrible. When we give God credit for something that He never did. For bad things, right? And so I just want you to know that, and we can have a discussion about that later, but even under the law, God was a giver, and He was not a taker. He doesn't give you good things and then take it away from you. There's a video on YouTube that you should watch maybe sometime, and it's about all these people. They're giving toddlers these suckers, and they're licking them, and then they take them away. I mean, it's cruel. You know, it's cruel to give a toddler a sucker, and then you say, no, you can't have that. And to see their faces, you know. And you think that, we talked about this last week. If you, being evil, know how to give good gifts, how much more your Father in heaven will give good gifts. Can you say good gifts? Good gifts. To you. And He's going to give you good gifts. And so He's a giver and not a taker. God says this about Himself: I am the Lord, I do not change. Hebrews says this: Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. So He's always been this way. He's always been a giver, a giver, a giver. And He gives some more. And He doesn't take. When He gives you good things, He doesn't take. You can think about it this way if you want to. He takes all the bad stuff and gives you all the good stuff. If you think about 2 Corinthians 5:21, it says, He takes my sin and gives me His righteousness. Right? How many know sin is bad? Right? So He takes the bad and gives me the good. And so God is a blesser. He overly, abundantly blesses you. And so what does that make us? Well, that makes us receivers. Say, I'm a receiver. I'm a receiver. I'm a receiver. You think about a television, and it receives a signal, from up in the air someplace, and puts it into your TV, and you get all these pictures and different things. That's what you are. You are a receiver of all these gifts. So we're to receive God's blessing. And so the question is not whether God is blessing. The question is, am I receiving? Am I receiving? And I know that there's other questions that come with that, like, how do I receive? And how do I know if I'm receiving? All those different things. I don't even actually have time to get into all that tonight. But I do know that there's some people that have this uncanny ability just to receive from God. You know some of them. They just receive from God. Every time they turn around, they're just receiving, receiving, receiving. They get, and they're just blessed, and they just keep receiving and receiving and receiving. Others desperately want to receive, but they aren't sure how to receive. And really, it's resting. That's the secret. Just rest. Rest in know who you are, knowing who you are, and knowing who your Papa is. Just resting. And then there's those like me. And I am learning more and more every day to be a receiver. But I have to consciously lay down my pride, which is me doing things for myself. Me doing things for myself. I don't like people doing things for me. I like doing it myself because it makes me feel two things. First of all, it makes me feel indebted, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. And it makes me feel lazy. This person's doing this for me. And so I can do it myself, right? And I know, I'm just telling you my own struggles, okay? I know it's not right. And I need to be able to receive the blessings of God. And so I want to declare to you today that I am a blessed man. I'm a blessed man. And we're a blessed family. And even just this last week, my wife and I can't even thank all of you guys that participated in so much. Marianne went to work on Tuesday. I went to Melford on Tuesday. And I get a text, Kevin, I'm going to come and fix this sprinkler. And I'm like, okay, I'm not at home. But Kendall and Tanner are there. They're probably sleeping. It's still in the morning, right? But go ahead and check this out. Marianne comes home, and many of you saw the video of her shocked surprise when she comes home, and I get this message. I get a text message from Marianne. Kevin, what are you doing? I'm visiting with somebody. Well, could you have time for a video call? Video call? What the heck do you need a video call for? Just text me or call me. And so like she said, it's important. It's 5 minutes. Now I'm like, okay, the kids did something. I guess a video call, I'm going to have to do something with the kids. And so I get this video call, and it's not even from my wife. And so here's Darce on the video call, and he's like, Kevin, I just want you to know that we got together and we planted your sod, or sorry, no, we planted your topsoil. We planted grass. And I'm like, oh really? Yeah, we went and bought this really early rising grass. I'm like, well, you didn't have to do that. I said, I have grass in the garage that you could have used. Yeah, I've already bought the seed for the grass. Oh, well, no, this stuff, you'll be really happy with it. It really grows really quick. And then he turns the camera around, and I'm like, what? You know? And then the pictures of everybody getting together and raking and packing and laying this sod and stuff like that. And you know, I honestly, I don't even, sometimes I have a hard time receiving, and all I can say is thank you. And that's all you really need to say is thank you. And I've had to overcome some areas in my life as being a blessed pastor. Let me talk it from the pastoral end, okay? Not just me personally, but from a pastor. Because I'm telling you that the devil tries to put thoughts in my life that it might not be good in ministry for me to have too much, right? To be too blessed. Maybe it's not right for the pastor to live in a brand new house. Maybe he should have bought something, you know, a little more affordable or more, you know, older or something. And I'm just giving you my own struggle, because the other struggle is that there are people out there in the Christian world that think if you bless your pastor too much, you got to give him just enough to keep him humble, right? That's in the church. That's there. And that if somebody's in ministry and they're prospering and they're being blessed, something's wrong. For example, if Bill Gates was to arrive in front of a hotel in a limousine, would anybody say anything? No, but if he showed up in a little Ford Focus, people would be saying, why is Bill Gates driving a Ford Focus? But you take a prosperous minister, somebody who's wrote books and, you know, had different things, and people are being ministered to, and he arrives in a limousine, and people are like, well, why is he in a limousine? Isn't that true? Isn't that true? And so even as a pastor in ministry, the devil puts thoughts in my mind that it might not be good to have too much, or it might not be good to be too blessed. Then there are thoughts brought by Satan that pastors ought to be poor and barely making it, and you know, just striding along. And I know those are thoughts of the devil, and so we're overcoming those. And can I say this? Doesn't matter, I'm going to say it anyways, okay? Poverty has absolutely nothing to do with humility. Poverty has absolutely nothing to do with humility. You see, humility is not based on your financial status. Humility is not even thinking lower of yourself than you ought to, right? Humility is knowing who you are and that God is greater. He's our Papa. I know who I am. I'm His child. God is greater still. Humility is knowing what I have and yet sharing it with those in need. Humility is acknowledging that everything I am, everything that I have, is available for God to use. That's humility. Everything I have is available for God to use. And I'm learning more and more how to receive with gratitude. That's another thing. Because it's getting easier and easier to receive without feeling indebted. But a lot of times, honestly, this is just my personal struggle. If you buy me a coffee, then I feel indebted the next time I need to buy you a coffee. I have a friend in Melfort that every day we would buy each other's coffee. And the great thing about it was mine always cost more than his. And he still bought mine, right? So in the long run, it cost him money. But one day he'd buy. The next day I'd buy. And then Friday would come, and Monday we'd forget whose turn it was. And we're like, it's my turn. No, it's my turn. No, it's my turn. No, it's my turn. But this, and it goes in this receiving without feeling indebted. Do you know what I'm talking about? That you actually just can say thank you and receive it and not have to think that you owe that person anything. I'm getting to some points here because you're going to find in the story that we're going to look at some of this here. And the one, or I should say that's one key to receiving, is receiving without feeling indebted. God is also the God of protection, which means He is not the God of harm or destruction, is He? God is our protector. He's not our harmer, right? He's not our destroyer. He's not out to harm you. He's not out to destroy you. The adversary comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But Jesus came to give you an abundant life. Say abundant life. Abundant. Say abundant life. Abundant. I think that sometimes we need to step up and live higher. Live greater and live in the abundant life that Christ has provided for us.
Amen to that.
Now, I should say this too, because when you're blessed by God, God doesn't bless you or me to be hoarders. He blesses you and I to be givers. Because He is a giver. We're created in His image. We have His nature. How many know that God is a blessed God? Amen. An overly abundantly blessed God. And so He blesses you to be a giver, not a hoarder. God is not withholding or hoarding His blessing from you. And that's the reason that we're blessed, is so that we can be givers. And we can be the image of Jesus, the image of God here on earth. To be givers. And God is also a restorer. He restores your health. He restores your marriage. He restores your finances. He restores your life. He restores your peace. He restores your joy. And when God restores, we're going to get all of this from the story that we're about to read. When God restores, He overly abundantly restores. Amen? He overly abundantly restores. Now, I want to show you all this from a story. We don't know her name, but we know her as the Shunammite woman. In 2 Kings chapter 4, we're going to begin the story in 2 Kings chapter 4. And I'm going to show you part of the story that I had forgotten about until I started reading through it again this week. And I'm just so blessed. Now, 2 Kings chapter 4 starts with a widow who has nothing. She's the one where Elisha, the prophet, says, get all the buckets you can to pour oil in. And make everything you can. And just keep pouring oil, keep pouring oil, keep pouring oil, and then sell all the oil to provide for you and your son. So this is somebody this is a woman that had nothing. But the Shunammite woman is the very next woman in the chapter. And it says this in verse 8 of 2 Kings chapter 4. Now there came a day when Elisha passed over to Shunem. There was a prominent woman. Can you say prominent woman? Prominent. Say prominent. Prominent. When you look at the word prominent, it doesn't use that for the widow. It means she was someone of wealth. She had a lot. She was prominent in her community. She was not poor. She lacked in no area. Well, except one that we'll find out. But financially, she was a prominent woman. Guess what? God doesn't mind if you have money. Uh-oh. I can see that exploding all over Facebook. God doesn't mind if you have money. Right? A prominent woman. And she persuaded Elisha to eat food. And just for the sake of time, I want to give you part of the story, and I'll read part of the story. And so what happens is, every time Elisha passes by, she feeds him. She says, Elisha, come and eat. And every time, there's something there for him. She looked after him. She was careful for him. And we're going to find out about that in a second. She goes to her husband. We're going to find out that he was an old man. Her husband was an old man. Now, don't look at your spouses and say, yeah, you're an old man, okay? But her husband was an old man. She goes to her husband and says, you know what? I know that this is a man of God. Can we add on to our house so that he can have his own private spot? I want to do this for him. And his husband said, yeah, go ahead, do it. And she does this. She builds a place, an attachment onto their own house, so that Elisha and Gehazi, his servant, could have their own space, their own privacy. And they make this walled chamber just for Elisha. And Elisha's in this chamber one day, and he's looking around, and it's decorated nicely. And I'm going to share with you in a second. I never saw this before this last week. And he's looking around, and he says, you know what? I would like to do something, not because I'm indebted, but I would like to bless this woman back for everything she's done for us. And he calls her. And she comes and stands in the doorway. And he said in verse 12, call the Shunammite. And when he called her, she stood before him. And he said, say now, behold, you should underline this in your Bible. I just highlighted it. You have been careful for us with all this care. Do you know what that means? It really means that this woman spared no expense. When she was careful for Elisha with all this care, she built this chamber. She went and she didn't get the cheapest bed. She got the best bed to put into that chamber. She went and found decorations that she was thinking about, and she spared no expense into providing this wonderful little space for Elisha. And he says, you have been careful with all this care. Or you have spared no expense to care for us. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that wonderful? And then he says, what can I do for you? And I could just see Elisha, you know. I know the king. Would you like me to just drop your name to the king and say, hey, there's a Shunammite woman over there? And he said, oh, I know captains of the armies. Do you want me to just mention you to the captains of the armies? These are high political figures, you know. And she says, no, I'm really good right here. And Elisha, if you can think about it, this great prophet missed something. It was Gehazi that says, Elisha, look, she doesn't have a son. She doesn't have a son. And I don't know if you know what that meant. But here's a lady, she's married to an old man. We find out that she's wanted a son for an inheritor, for someone to leave an inheritance to. Because what happens when her husband dies? Well, according to Jewish law, this guy's brother is supposed to take over, and she basically loses everything. She's supposed to be under the care now of her brother-in-law, and she's got nobody to take this over. She has no son. And if you can see what she says here, Elisha says, hey, okay, by this time next year, you will embrace a son. In verse 16, she says, no, my Lord, O man of God, do not lie to your maidservant. Now, I want you to see her desperation here. I want you to see some of the physical possibilities. The Bible doesn't say it. But it's very possible that they've been trying for a long time and she's never got pregnant. It's possible that she's had multiple miscarriages because she's like, no, every time this happens, I get excited and then I'm disappointed. Don't lie to me. Every time. And so it's possible that she suffered miscarriages, and she's like, I don't want to go through this again. I don't want to get my hopes up, only to be dashed again. 1 year later, she's embracing a son. The son grows up a little bit and is able to go out and work with his dad in the fields. He must have been pretty young, because a little later on, he's sitting on mom's knee. And as he's out in the field, he says, Dad, my head hurts. I have a headache. One of the servants takes him to mom, and she's got him in her arms. He's sitting on her knee, and he dies in her arms. Can you imagine? Her husband's old. She has someone to inherit all of his wealth, and he's gone. She gets up, and I know we've heard messages about saying to her husband, you know, it shall be well, and the faith statement and that and everything like that. But I want you to see something a little bit different. When she gets to Elisha, in verse 28, she says, did I ask for a son? I didn't ask for this. I told you, don't lie to me. She said, did I not say, do not deceive me? You have got my hopes all up. I even got the son. Now he's gone. Did I ask for this? Elisha, of course we know the story. She had laid the little boy in Elisha's bed. This is when Elisha goes in, lays down on the boy, his hand on his hand, and his nose on his nose, and breathes, and nothing happens. He gets up and he kind of wanders around, the Bible says, paces around the room. Then he does it again, and the little boy comes back to life. Let me just stop right there and just say that God is a giver. Do you think God gave that little boy to the Shunammite woman just to take him? And yet so many of us today would say, well, God just wanted him back into his arms. And we use this as comfort. Now let me share this. In Christian circles, we try to comfort people because, I mean, stuff happens. We probably know people that this happens to. And we try to comfort Christians, you know, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. You know, but one day we'll see your child again, and God must have just wanted this child to be with him. And I'm like, no. Do you know who doesn't believe that? The atheists. The atheists look at what we say and say, yeah, God took this child, and they're like, that's why I don't believe in God. What God would give you a gift and then take it away? They have more sense than we do sometimes. And no wonder they don't want to, you know, just surrender lives to this wonderful, amazing God when we have statements like this. Let me ask you this. If it was God's will for this little boy to stay dead, do you think he would have been raised from the dead? Not a chance. This was not God. Now, in my mind, for a long time, I forgot about the rest. I thought that was the end of the story. Because, you know, a little bit later in the same chapter, there's this poisonous stew, and Elisha, what does he do? 20 loaves of Jews, they were eating the stew. They cried out, "Oh man of God, there's death in the pot." And he said, "Now bring the meal." And he threw into the pot. He threw it into the pot. Bring meal, sorry. He threw it into the pot, and then it was healed. And then Naaman comes to Elisha. He's got leprosy, and he dips in the Jordan River 7 times and is healed. Then there's Gehazi's greed, and he gets leprosy, Naaman's leprosy, right? Then there's this axe head that's they're chopping trees. It's a borrowed axe, and the axe goes into the water, and Elisha takes a tree, and the axe head floats to the top, right? Then the Armenians try to capture Elisha in chapter 6, and he leads them, and they get captured. And then there's the siege. There's a promise of food. There's the 4 Armenians, the 4 leopards relate the Armenians' flight. They just leave the siege, and there's all these things. And then over in chapter 8, we find the Shunammite woman. Now here's what it says. We're going to read verses 1 to 6. I don't even know where I am in my notes. We're just going to go, okay? Let's read verses 1 to 6. Now Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life. So all this time had passed. I want you to know that in 2 Kings chapter 8, husband has died. She's now a widow with a son. And we can find that, we can see that here. Listen, because he says to her, go with your household and sojourn wherever you can sojourn, for the Lord has called a famine, and it will come on the land for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God, and she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went out to appeal to the king for her house and for her field. Now the king was talking with Gehazi. Now let me just say, she went to appeal for her land. I'll get into that in just a second. So this is why we know her husband's dead, because this would be her husband's job. We actually know that her son's not old enough to take this inheritance, because this would have been his job. In fact, we find just in a couple of verses here that she's there with her son, and so she's actually training her son, this is what you do. All right? And so she goes in verse 4, now the king was talking to Gehazi, the servant, the man of God, saying, please relate to me all the great things that Elisha has done. As he was relating to the king how he had restored to life the one who was dead, behold, the woman whose son had been restored to life appealed to the king for her house and for her field. And Gehazi said, my lord, O king, this is that woman. And this is her son that I was just telling you about, whom Elisha restored to life. When the king asked the woman, she related it to him. So the king appointed to her a certain officer, saying, restore all that was hers, and all the produce of the field from the day she had left the land even until now. Now, this is just so exciting to me. Because, first of all, I want you to know that out of this woman's faithfulness, God protected her and her family from a famine. She had been faithful all these years, and God protected her. Not only that, her whole household. And in those 7 years, what would happen is the ruler, you know, the most important person in all of the nation is the king. The king gets fed first. Everybody else, if there's enough for you, you can have some leftovers. But the king and his family get fed first. And so when there's family, they would actually confiscate your fields. And that's why this woman, after 7 years, she's going back to the king. She's saying, King, the famine is over. I want to make an appeal to get my land back. It's amazing that as she's going to the king, Gehazi is right there. Can you say divine appointments?
Divine appointment.
Divine appointment. He's talking to the king and she walks up. Hey, I don't know if you've ever been in the mall and you meet somebody like, hey, we were just talking about you. Hopefully it was good, right? Hopefully it was good. And so she goes in and she says to the king, and the king said, ask for the story again. Tell me how your boy was raised back to life. And she relates everything. And he says to a certain officer, the king looks at a certain officer, and he says, I want you to restore her land back to her. But listen to this. Remember, produce is money. Produce is their economic system. That's how they buy and trade. Produce is how their economic system and financial, their wealth and everything. The king says, not only give her back all of her land, I want you to give her all the back pay for the last 7 years of all the produce that was taken off her land. Isn't that awesome? How God looked after her, He provided for her. He even made her go to a different place to protect her. And when He comes back, He restores everything with back pay. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you've ever felt disappointed, but let me tell you that God will never disappoint you. He never gives you things just to take them away. God will never disappoint his children. And you'll never be a disappointment to him. Let me go to the very end of my notes here, because let's see here. We'll end off with this. I want you to be encouraged today that today is the day of restoration. I looked it up. I can't remember exactly where it is now, though. It says, I will restore what the cankerworm has eaten. Sometimes we go through life, and I don't know about you. I'm just going to talk about me. And I know that I'm blessed. I know that I live in God's blessing. Sometimes I look and say, God, where are you? I could really use some blessing right now. God has never failed us. We have never been disappointed. And every time the cankerworm takes something, God restores with more. Say more. 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 And this woman had been faithful to God, and God would not let her faithfulness go unrewarded. I know that many times we've gone to church, and maybe we sit in church and like, God, I've been faithful to you all these years. I'm still going to church. I'm still faithful to you. I'm still... it may seem that you stayed faithful to God, and my question, well, God, where are you? I want you to know that God is... Joel 2:25. He restores what the cankerworm stayed. It may seem that you stayed faithful to God. Where is He? I want you to know that God will always remain faithful to you. Always. He will restore your health. He will restore your life. He will restore all of that. And I want to assure you today that God has seen your faithfulness. He will always be faithful to you. In fact, He says in the Gospels, what you do in secret, God sees. In fact, that's part of our giving, is you do it in secret. I had no idea what was going on Tuesday. I saw some of those Facebook messages afterwards. Does Kevin know? No, and don't tell him. Had no clue. But God rewards you openly. You are a blessed people. Isn't that amazing, the story of the Shunammite woman? She doesn't have a son for an inheritance. God restores her son. Her son now is going to look after her the rest of her days. Her son is going to continue on in the family business and the family wealth. Her son is going to be a blessing. And when they come back, when God protects them from famine, God restores not just her land, but the 7 years of produce back. I want you to know God wants to bless you super abundantly above anything